4, 3, 2, 1. Right here. 4 tires of fuel.
Ride 111.
Outside.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the 4 and Fuel podcast for episode 20. And today is a special one. We got special guest Ralph Sheheen on the podcast. Ralph, how's it going?
Good, man. How are you guys doing?
Doing really good.
Really good, man. Glad to have you on. It's a big episode for us. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me on. I always like doing a little bench racing.
Yeah. So, Wes, how's it going?
Oh, it's been good. I'm glad that we have you on the show, Ralph. It's going to be a good episode, and I hope everybody else is doing well. I'm looking forward to kicking off the night in a very positive way.
It's always good to hear. And so I just want to get started, Ralph. How the past, like I'd say 6 months have been, with the whole pandemic, how has that, affected you, how you've been handling it?
Well, it's been frustrating for everybody, right? It's been unlike anything any of us could ever have imagined would be something that we would have to deal with. So there is absolutely no way anybody could prepare for what we've dealt with or be prepared to figure out how to get through it emotionally, mentally, physically, economically, financially. I mean, it's just been an unbelievable drain for everybody. On the racing side of things, it was brutal, of course, like it was for every other sport, entertainment industry. Just brought it to a screeching halt, right? We were very fortunate that folks at Supercross were able to figure out how to do the final 7 races in a bubble out in Utah, and it worked. It was a great plan. They executed it perfectly, and we were able to get the final 7 races in. Since then, it's been, as it has been for everybody else. You 1 step forward, 3 steps back, right? You gain one event that you didn't know was going to be able to happen, and you lose 3 others that you were hoping were going to happen that didn't. And it's pretty much been that way ever since. And for now, I think it's going to be that way till the end of the year, losing more events than we're gaining.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been crazy for everyone. Everyone knows how you mentioned, 1 step forward, 3 steps back. We saw the same thing happen in the Cup Series. We saw, we gained Daytona Road Course, but we lost Chicagoland and Sonoma.
Yeah.
So it's just been really hard, but I really like how motorsports has been able to tackle it, especially like you said, getting the Supercross season, done. That's big, and NASCAR has been able to figure it out. And even throughout the lower series, they still care about it. They want to get everyone as much track time as possible, and it's really working out. And I feel like motorsports is taking the lead almost when it comes to other sports, and tackling how to handle all this.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, we've been fortunate compared to some of the stick and ball sports in the fact that, obviously racers are in cars or on motorcycles or wearing helmets and suits and gloves. And in a lot of ways, you can be apart from each other while you're competing. But we still had to figure out, what do we do about crew members and pit stops and medical personnel and all the other stuff that goes with it. But the biggest loss of all, obviously, is no fans. And having been, involved with the Supercross side of it and seeing how that played out with no fans, I was invited to the Indy 500 as one of the only 40 media members that were there. To see that without fans was something I hope I never have to see again. But we got it in, so it's a balance, right? Right now it's, you just got to do what you got to do to get these seasons done and hope that at least running the events, even though the fans can't be there, at least hopefully running the events brings them some enjoyment of at least being able to sit at home and watching their favorite sport.
How different is it for someone who goes to the track pretty often and the fans just add that extra bit of, amp up, there's a whole bunch of energy pumped up and now you just take that away. How different is that feel around the racetrack?
It's a huge difference. And, it's not – everybody talks about, well, the fans inside the venue, in the grandstands and all that. Yeah, that's a huge loss of a feeling. But really it begins before that, right? I mean, when you're pulling up to the venue and you see all the tailgating going on and the fans with the flags flying and everybody's got their shirts on, you start feeling that energy right away. And that starts to get you pumped up and in the mood, right? I know like Supercrosses, you just pull into the parking lot of those big stadiums and already they're there. And the tailgating is going on and they're running around in their favorite riders or manufacturer colored shirts and they're getting excited because maybe it's the only race they're going to all year, or maybe it's their first one or a new venue they've never been to, and they're really excited. Everybody feeds off of that. The racers, the teams, the officials, the broadcasters. You start feeling it right then. Then you get in the building and the race unfolds and it's even bigger. So, yeah, you feel it in a lot of ways you didn't know until you didn't have it.
Yeah, I know. Even going, Wes and I went to the All-Star race in July, and even then, it was limited fans, and it still felt different because not everyone was able to do everything that you could usually do, and you usually get all that fan access. You really didn't have that. There weren't all the stuff set up outside the track like you usually do. That's almost the best part about going to races is everything beforehand, and you really couldn't do that. And getting in there was nice. It was nice to be in the track watching the race, but other than that, it was really just a different experience. And like you said, I really hope it doesn't have to happen again.
I feel like
right.
with Bristol too. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ralph.
No, we're just hopeful, right? I mean, nobody knows. Nobody knows where this is going. I mean, you hear different things every day, I just hope that at some point in time soon, as a world, we're able to get our arms around this thing and start to open it back up.
I feel like with Bristol, and I was going to bring this up after our All-Star episode, is that seeing the limited capacity in some of these stadiums, it's like going from, especially in like Bristol where you have this Coliseum and the seats are sitting on top of the track, you're going from an NFL game to a high school game with the amount of people that you're seeing in these stadiums. It's a surreal feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you see that, now you're going to have the NFL come in. We'll see how that looks when a lot of the teams have limited fans. Some have no fans. So I feel like that's even going to be more, difficult because, with NASCAR, it seems like it's become more consistent with having limited fans. But then you're going to tune into NFL games where there's 16 a week. Some games you tune into, there's going to be fans, some there's not. So it's going to be a different feel. At least with, racing, it's consistent. It's either, there's going to be no fans this week or there's going to be fans this week. You know what you're in for.
Yep. Yeah. And the NFL will be a big test, that's for sure.
And I think, like you touched on, Ralph, just the idea of hopefulness, because I know that we're all going to be able to get through this just as a country and as a whole world, kind of as time kind of goes on. We try to figure out kind of what the virus is attacking, and we're able to knock down with maybe some kind of medication in the future. But at least what we're doing now, I feel like, especially not only in NASCAR and Supercross and the auto world, but in every sport, I feel like we're all taking really good precautions that we need to be taking. And it's definitely a step in the right direction. Although I know colleges have kind of impacted numbers right now. I think that once things kind of settle back down, once we get past, I would say, the end of this year, and this year has not been a good one, but once we get through it, I think we'll definitely have a good 2021 to look forward to, not only as in the sports world, but just in general for all of our own life's sake.
Yeah, let's hope so. I mean, some of the big events are already selling tickets for 2021. So we'll just see if there's a big difference between December and January.
Yeah, and we can only hope for that. So I want to get away from this virus talk. I want to throw it back, Ralph, to what got you into racing? What started that?
Well,
And then
my family had always been fans of it. Nobody in my family was a crew member or a driver or anything like that. We were just fans. And I grew up in Sacramento, California. And so my parents, we'd go to drag races or motocross events or sprint car races. Those are pretty much the big things going on out there. NASCAR didn't have a huge presence in Sacramento. There was stock car races, but the Cup Series wasn't going to Sonoma yet. That was, quite a few years later and that sort of thing. So we were pretty much doing sprint car racing and motocross. Hangtown motocross was a big deal. Flat track, Sacramento Mile was a big deal. And drag racing, was a big deal. So those are really the three things that we would hit a lot. We'd go to, it was Sears Point Raceway in Laguna Seca. So you'd see, Can-Am or Indy cars or a sports car race would come through. But that's really, where we would go. Sacramento Raceway for the drags, places like Chico and Placerville and West Capitol Raceway back then in Sacramento for sprint car racing. First thing I ever attended was the Dirt Champ cars back then, what now is Silver Crown, but when it was actually a part of the championship trail for IndyCar, Mario and AJ and the Unser brothers, Johnny Rutherford, all those guys racing. And I was hooked right then. That was it. First experience was all it took.
And, all of that. And so what got you thinking that you wanted to be a, journalist, sportscaster when it came to racing?
Well, I knew that driving wasn't really going to be an option. And the fact that, my family wasn't wealthy and my dad wasn't super mechanically inclined. In fact, he died when I was 12. So, it was pretty much me and mom, and neither one of us was going to be any good at working on a TQ midget or a, go-kart or something like that. So getting those opportunities weren't there to chase that dream. So it was, well, how else can I be involved in this? And I used to love watching the races on TV and watching the Chris Economackies and the guys, Ken Squire and the broadcasters of the day. And, that was like, well, if you can't be Mario Andretti, maybe you can interview him, and call his race. And that's pretty cool. So I got interested in it that way, and then went to California State University, Chico, and got my degree and started broadcasting races all around Northern California. First one was at Sonoma at Sears Point, Motorcycle Road Racing Series, and it just kind of grew from there.
That's awesome. That's we were kind of, before the show, we were kind of going through and seeing just all the different forms of motorsports that you've been able to call. Is there like one that kind of stands out over the other that, when you think of your entire broadcasting career, like one form of motorsports that just really stands out to you that you enjoy commentating more than the other? Or is it just kind of just the love of the thrill of the speed?
Yeah, I mean, I'm honestly a true fan, a real fan.
Mm-hmm.
So I love all of it. And I mean, I was in Crandon, Wisconsin this weekend for, off-road racing, short course off-road racing, Indy 500 before that. And I'm going to Boone, Iowa this week for the IMCA Super Nationals. You can't get three more different forms of motorsport from each other than those three. And I'm literally as excited for any one of them to attend. just because as a fan, I love racing. I'm not a real mechanical guy, so it's not like I sit there and go, oh man, I can't wait to see the turbocharged whatever's running. So much as I'm more about, I can't wait to see, this guy battling with that guy and these cool cars running, or just I know that, Boone is I've never been to the Super Nationals before, and I know the racing there is great and can be 3, 4, even 5 wide with those IMCA modifieds, and I think that's just going to be a blast. So it's the whole experience, right? It's not just the racing, but experiencing Boone for the first time, experiencing Crandon, checking out Indy with no fans. All those are things that, as a fan, I want to experience. If I had to pick one event to call, somebody said you can call one more race, what would it be? It would either be an Indy 500 again or a Knoxville Nationals again. But if somebody said you can do one more season of something, what would it be? And it'd be Supercross. I mean, Supercross, this is a whole week in and week out. Week in and week out, there's no better racing than that.
That's great. And one thing, just to kind of go back a little bit, when you were talking about your firsts, just being able to experience everything for the first time, how was your first experience in your shoes being a commentator? Was it pretty easy to get into the position that you were in, having a degree that you graduated with from college, or was it kind of a little bit of did it take a little bit of time to get to perform at where you wanted to at your very first event?
I pulled it off pretty quick. I graduated from Chico in May, and I was live on ESPN in October. But I lied my way in. I called a guy about PA announcing, actually, I don't know if you guys can see it, but back up here is a Camel Grand Prix from Del Mar.
Mhm.
It's right there. That one?
Yeah.
IMSA street race through the Del Mar Fairgrounds in San Diego, season finale for them. There's guys like Jeff Brabham and Davy Jones, and Robbie Gordon was running back then, and Pete Halsmer and all those guys, Camel GT, GTO, GTU days and all that. And I called about working on the PA there because I'd done those cars at Laguna and at Sears Point. And he said, oh, I've got all my PA guys. Have you done any TV before? Well, naturally, I said, yeah, of course. I've done a ton of TV, absolutely. And I quickly started telling him everything I knew about the series and kind of got away from my TV experience. And he thought about it for a minute. He goes, well, let me call you back. And he must have checked around to see if I was for real. And he called back the next day and he said, okay, you're hired. You're going to be a part of the ESPN crew. And it was Bob Varsha, Bill Adam, Chris Economaki, and me. And so it was amazing to think that my first TV gig was, live on ESPN for one of the biggest series that they had back then. Back then, really, the only stuff that was on TV was IMSA, IndyCar, NHRA, and NASCAR. It was those 4 that were on a regular basis. And here I was landing one of those jobs. So that was the first tryout, if you will, and it went well. And then you start getting more and snowballs from there.
And that's huge that you had that opportunity, because I've seen Jeff Brabham before, and some of those guys like Tommy Kendall, and back from that age, and the Robbie Gordons. I think Wally Dallenbach even raced back then, and Willie T. Riggs, which he just was announced for.
Certainly.
Yeah, he's in the upcoming series that Ray Evernham is putting out. So just a lot of those guys that you were able to just have that opportunity to commentate. Some of the best drivers at that time, especially in that discipline of a sport, had to be a great opportunity for you, not only as a commentator because that's what you wanted to be, but just as a fan overall.
Oh yeah, it was really cool. It was very intimidating, of course, to think, oh man, here we go, right into the big boy leagues, and working with Chris Economaki, the Dean of American Motorsports Journalism, as your colleague, knowing that if you got something wrong, he's going to chew you up, So there was a lot of pressure, but it was a lot of fun, and somehow I got through it. And I think, you can in this business, you can take all the classes, you can do all that, but it's really a baptism by fire. There's nothing that can prepare you for, in a classroom, for going live on ESPN the first time. I mean, Bob Varsha throws to you live on ESPN, you better have something to say or you're going to look really foolish real fast. And there's nothing in a classroom that can prepare you for that.
Yeah, and that's really cool because I'm going to school right now. I'm a senior and getting my degree in sports journalism. And it's funny you say that because I've heard that so much. There's only so much that learning, in school could really do for you. It's until you get in front of that camera and behind that microphone that you really know what you got. And
that's exactly right. You guys are doing the right thing by doing podcasts and stuff like this now. It gives you opportunity to try it out and make your mistake. Everybody makes mistakes. I still make mistakes. You're going to do that. But it's a lot easier to have the growing pains in front of a smaller audience than a bigger one. Fortunately or unfortunately for me, I went right in front of the big one and just laid it all out there, and apparently, got through it strong enough that they invited me back.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like you said, for us on a smaller scale, we just throw this out on YouTube about once a week and, just, not shooting for very many views. We just do this because we love to talk about motorsports, NASCAR especially. And it's just a conversation for us. So we don't feel like it's a job for us. And
Sure.
I'm sure kind of the same way for you. You love motorsports and it's just easy and fluent for you to talk about it.
Right. And that's when you're in your zone of the right area, whatever it is, whether it's baseball, basketball, volleyball, whatever it might be. The one thing I would say, though, is don't just do what you're comfortable with. And the reason why I say that, I used to announce Speedway motorcycles on the PA at Gold Country Fairgrounds in Auburn, California on Friday night. And I would do NASCAR Weekly Stock Car Racing at All-American Speedway in Roseville. Bill McAnally owns that track now. That was every Saturday night. Sunday, I was either at Sears Point, Laguna, Hangtown, whatever the big event was on Sunday, doing whatever. So I had those 3 gigs every week. And then on Monday, I was announcing ladies' fashion shows at a restaurant bar. So I had 4 gigs every week. And the one that probably benefited me the most was the fashion show deal because I didn't know what I was talking about. I could talk all day long on the other 3, no problem, just like you guys are doing. But I didn't know anything about ladies' fashion. But the key was I had to figure it out, and I had to figure it out on the fly. And that really benefited me later because you learn how to come up with that stuff while you're on the air, on your feet, with nobody there to help you. So whenever somebody asks me, what should I do to get a job like yours? I go, well, what are you most interested in? They say racing. I go do a volleyball game. And they look at me like I got 3 heads. But the point is, you don't know anything about volleyball. But you're going to have to figure that out on the air and entertain all those people around you. And that's really important because at some race you're going to be at, when you're on air, you're either going to have a 4-hour rain delay, somebody's going to knock the fence down, something's going to go wrong, and you're going to have to entertain everybody at home and everybody in the grandstands with nobody there. You're working without a net. Nobody can help you. Producers can only do so much. Eventually, you've literally interviewed everybody in the garage area and you still got time. What are you going to talk about? So that's why I always say, go do something you have no clue about.
I think we need to start up a podcast now about ladies' fashion. I think that's going to be our new side gig.
I think you'll be surprised at how much it benefits you.
Absolutely. That's really good advice. I appreciate that.
No, definitely.
Well, like I said, that's something they can't teach you in class. You just got to go out and find it. And the great thing was I got paid. So, it was 4 paid gigs and one was a struggle, but it benefited me. It was a win-win all the way around.
Yeah. feel like I'm learning more right now than I have in my 4 years at college. I definitely know college professors telling me to go commentate some volleyball or ladies fashion shows.
And I guarantee you it's because they never did it. And that's not to, I didn't have any professors tell me that either. And that's not to say that professors are bad. They're not, but they're in the classroom all the time. And maybe they did some broadcasting throughout their career before they became a professor. Who knows? But I can just tell you from real life experience, these are the things you're going to have to deal with. I remember doing a Busch race. It was a Busch Series race at the National Fairgrounds, and Dick Berger and I were the pit reporters. It was live on TNN, and it was raining like crazy. And we had literally interviewed everybody, and Dick actually did what we all joked about. He went and interviewed the hot dog vendor because that was the only guy we had not talked to. And he made a joke out of it, and it was great because he was thinking on his feet, and he sold it to the producer that way. He's like, we always joke about this. We've literally interviewed everybody. Let's just interview the hot dog guy. And it was a great, he went to the concession stand and did it, and it was great. But you only learn that by, doing those things.
That is, it's just so fun to hear stories like that. And I was always a fan of Dick Berger, and I always really liked him, growing up watching on Fox, and he was always a pit reporter. And he even dove into some play-by-play. So it was so cool with Dick Berger, and it was upsetting to see him leave after 2012, but he definitely earned a good farewell with Fox. That was really cool with Dick. And I'm curious. So what's really like the biggest difference between, you're assigned to be a pit reporter or be the play-by-play? Like, is there anything really different when it comes to your note-taking, prepping into the week?
There's no similarity between the two jobs.
Mm-hmm.
They're all different. Your responsibilities behind the microphone, and whether you're a peer reporter or an analyst, play-by-play, or a host or a studio host or whatever it might be, you're on air and you're talking, but the responsibilities are all very different. The play-by-play guy is driving the bus. Your responsibility is the producer has a direction they want to go with the show, whether it's, a race or leading to a feature or going to commercial or whatever it is. You're the one that's steering the bus to all those different things. The producer's giving you the roadmap, but you've got to get the bus there. And you got to get everybody else in the crew on that bus headed in the same direction. Pit reporters are, they're pretty much just relaying the battle story from down on the battlefield, right? You're right in there, talking to crew chiefs, listening on the radio, hearing what the drivers are saying, talking to crew chiefs about changes that are to be made, and you're relaying those stories and adding nuggets that you might have learned in the garage area during the week to kind of help push that story along as the play-by-play and the color analysts are talking about a particular driver. If you got something you can add, you do that. The color analyst, their job is really the how and why. Play-by-play guy is who, what, when, where. So-and-so's leading. This is the race you're at. He just passed so-and-so for the lead on lap whatever. Color guy does the how and why as to, well, that pass happened because he's got a new suspension set up and it really worked coming off the last corner, and that gave him the drive down the straightaway, complete that pass, whatever it might be. And then everybody's kind of starts working those things. And you vary on some of that, obviously, as the shows unfold. Everybody's taking notes. Everybody's doing homework. And the homework isn't just that week leading up to race day. It's 365 days out of the year, 24 hours a day. It's 10 o'clock at night and I'm doing this with you guys. You're always talking racing, learning about racing, reading about racing, doing something, especially nowadays with social media and the internet. It's the first thing I'm doing in the morning when I wake up and the last thing I do tonight before I go to bed.
It's something that, I always check kind of the general social medias every day, not as much as guys like you do, but yeah, every day there's something new. There's a new story developing, or there's, more information coming out about something. Like even today we saw the whole deal with Auto Club, wanting to build a short track now. And
Yeah.
so that's it's crazy. There's always something changing every day. And in a day like today where we all have to be socially distant, and we can't always, we're relying on social media so much more these days.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's the big difference, like with Speed Sport. I own Speed Sport, and talk to my guys all the time. I go, don't worry about being first, because somebody's at the racetrack and already saw. And a lot of times it's the driver of the team has already tweeted out or put it out on Instagram, whatever the news is. So-and-so got fired, so-and-so got a new sponsor, Auto Club's doing whatever. That story is going to break. That's not the whole story. You can't tell the whole story in 140 characters. Can't do it. I'd rather have our guys be right on all the facts and have the full story and the real impact of whatever the story is for everybody, more than just, hey, this is happening. Okay, well, that's great that's happening. Now what's really happening? I mean, we see it all the time at Speed Sport. Somebody will tweet something out about, I'm at such and such a racetrack and I just saw this. Okay, then the next thing you know is the numbers at Speed Sport go through the roof because everybody came running to us, find out what's really going on.
So, yeah, you bring up Speed Sport. I was actually wanting to ask, how did that all, get started, and what's your goal with it?
Well, it started in 1934 as an original fold and half black and white newspaper, traditional thing. Chris Economaki, of course, wasn't the one who started it, but he owned it for the longest period of time and brought it to prominence as the go-to for motorsports news and information. And that's when, there was no internet or social media. So Chris and I, as I said, we worked together on that first show and became friends, and he became like a mentor. And I actually wrote for the paper over years, and, he wrote about me in his column and all that. And so we had a good relationship. And when he died in his 90s, it was a family owned and operated business, and his family didn't want to do it anymore. So his daughter, Corinne, who's a good friend, reached out to me and a couple partners about us possibly becoming the next stewards of the brand. And so we bought the brand, and first thing we did was we turned that newspaper into a full-blown media company. We since have acquired Sprint Car Midget as well. So we have 2 magazines, 2 websites, social media for both brands. We do 26 national TV shows at least a year on MAV TV. We have a block every Thursday night, counting the reruns. We're on 52 weeks out of the year. We do our own podcast, the Ralph Sheheen Show. We do, we're working on a documentary right now. But the biggest thing we just launched is speedsport.tv. There's a channel and a network there. The network is a full-blown, over-the-top television network, just like Netflix or Hulu. You can get it on Roku, Fire Stick, all the usual sources that way. But it's real TV. It's not just internet. But you can get it on your connected device, of course. And right now we have 80-plus affiliates on that network. All the Boone National stuff is up on the network. IMCA TV is a part of our network. We're doing well over 100 broadcasts every weekend on there. We just did Crandon last weekend. We did, what else have we got going on? Power Eye is on there. We cut a deal. You guys might have seen the press release about 2 weeks ago from NASCAR. We did a rights deal with them where Speed Sport has the rights to all of the NASCAR weekly racing series tracks, Advanced Auto Parts series tracks. So places like Riverhead, Stafford, All-American Speedway, they're all signing up on the network. So your favorite NASCAR short track is now going to be broadcasting through the Speed Sport TV network. And Speed Sport's going to be supplying grassroots racing content to NASCAR.com, which when you click on it on NASCAR.com will link you back to Speed Sport to read the story. So, I mean, there's a lot of amazing things happening there. And the documentary that we got coming, I'll give you a little bit of a hint about it. It involves NASCAR wing cars. So it's a pretty cool, the cars of the 70s. So that'll be coming out probably end of next year.
Well, I know what I'm downloading on my Fire Stick tonight when we get off of here.
There you go. And the cool thing about it is you can pick any of the channels you want. Like you might want to get in on IMCA TV or Power Eye or Stafford. But then you can also buy the Speed Sport channel. And then if you don't get a chance to watch all that other racing live as it happens, you can see all of that video on demand after it airs live on their individual channels on the Speed Sport channel. So if you just want one, get that one.
Man, it's just never-ending source of racing. You just sit there and never have.
Well,
downtime.
you got to. The one thing about this sport is you can't just do one thing. Unless even the drivers. I mean, they got all kinds of other things going on. Once you get in and you start meeting people and opportunities and ideas and things just kind of start happening. Hopefully.
I tell guys at work this all the time. They always want to just do. They have one skill set and they just want to focus on that. But I'm always telling them, broaden your horizon. Don't limit yourself, and always expand your horizon. And I feel like in any aspect of life, I feel like that's very a rational way of thinking. Don't limit yourself just to cover one form of racing. Even if you love that the most, always look at the other forms of motorsports or sports or
some people just like stability, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. If that's your thing, man, that's cool. That's your thing. I can't sit still that long. I had too many things spinning up here that I want to try.
Absolutely.
Sometimes I make my wife crazy with that, but she knew what she was getting into.
It's got to be a lot of fun too. I mean, the fact that you're able to have so many different interactions with so many different people that are just auto racing fans or some form of racing fan, because you're not sticking to that one discipline. You're able to reach out and meet all these different people that come from small towns, big towns, people that have little experience to a lot of experience. And I think for you especially, that's got to be just a lot of fun to see, because you're not just following some kind of specific guideline that's given to you every single week where you just have to follow that one thing. This for you, especially in your shoes, busy as a commentator, busy with your website, busy with so many different things going on in your life, you just get to continuously interact with new things every day.
Well, yeah, and you never know, which one you're going to need. For example, like the broadcasting side of this year is, with everything going on, is pretty sluggish, because there hasn't been a lot of events. But on the flip side, speedsport.tv has been going like a rocket because everybody else is sitting at home looking for stuff to watch. So that's been the benefit of having that going.
And just kind of to ask you a question with the different disciplines of racing, how many different kinds of racing, I don't even know if you have a number, but how many different forms have you covered throughout your entire career? Because it's extensive, dating back to, I guess you said in the late 80s. So over these past few years, you've probably covered.
We would have a better chance trying to think
I'd
of
say
a form
maybe
of
more than
racing
that.
I haven't done.
Right.
We'd probably have a better chance coming up with something I haven't done. I have not actually counted how many different forms of racing I've done. But I mean, I can tell you that basically I've covered, every form of motorcycle racing out there, sports car racing, drag racing, stock cars, Indy cars, sprint cars, midgets, Silver Crown. I mean, off-road, boat racing. Man, what's left? I've done jet skis. I've done monster trucks. I've done swamp buggies. I'm trying to think of all the crazy things, I mean, I haven't done a snowmobile race, so I'm missing that one still. I can tell you this too. I've done every, and I feel this isn't a bragging thing. This is just a very fortunate thing as I think about it. As you sit there and you think about your career before you start, you're like, man, it would be really cool if I could at least do this. And to now at this stage, sit here and look back at my career and go, wow, I've done the Daytona 500, the Indy 500, 12 hours of Sebring, 24 hours of Daytona. I've done the U.S. Nationals drag race. I've done Knoxville Nationals, Anaheim Supercross. I've done MotoGP in the United States. I did the Daytona 200. I've called Crandon, which is the biggest short course off-road race in the world. I mean, I've done all of the biggest motorsports events. I've called Monaco, the F1 race. I've done all the biggest motorsports events around the world except for Le Mans. That's the only one I haven't done. And the only reason why I never got to do Le Mans is because all the years that Speed had it, I was at Michigan doing the Cup race because it was on the same weekend. So, the one thing I tell people a lot, I've done the Chili Bowl, is you sit there and you go, the great news is I get to go to a race every weekend. The bad news is it's not always the one you want to go to. It's not bad you're going to a race, but sometimes you're like, I'd like to go see that because I've never seen that,
Mm-hmm. And so I'm just curious, so say the Supercross season, you're coming down to the final race, you kind of know who the champion's going to be. Do you have a call already, thought about, or is that
No.
just all off top of the head?
Totally. I'm sure there's some guys that do. I want it to be just, excuse me, I want it to be just spur of the moment. Even like when I do a voiceover and, you might know that Bob Johnson's going to win this stock car race. You're going to voice over, like when we do one of our perfect example is I'm going to Boone this weekend. We're going to make 4 TV shows for our Speed Sports series on MAP TV. Airs every Thursday night out of the Boone Nationals. Well, I'm going to know who won, but I'm not going to think about how I'm going to say that. And I don't want the producer to tell me what's coming in each segment. I want to just see it and do it as if I've never seen it before. That way you get the real emotion of the call. You can hear when guys are faking it. You can pick it. I can, just because I've been around it enough. I can tell when a guy's, faking a laugh or pushing the excitement a little bit. You can pick up on that. You can do that in any sport, not just racing. I don't want to be that. I think everybody has their style. Like you mentioned, Dick Berggren. Dick's style was very much technical. Dick was a real hands-on guy. He worked on race cars and knew all that. So he really got into the nitty-gritty of engines and suspension setups and all that kind of stuff. Me, when I'm pit reporting, it's more about human interest stories. Hey, I heard this about Jeff Gordon, and Fluffy, whatever it is. You tell that story and make it interesting with what's going on the racetrack. As a play-by-play guy, I think my deal has always been enthusiasm and excitement for what is actually happening on the racetrack at that moment. And it's when you hear me get excited, it's for real.
Yeah, I know one of the most famous calls, for NASCAR fans, at least with you, was back in the 2009 Coke 0400. I mean, that finish was insane. And just the emotion of that finish it's impactful.
Yeah, it was fun doing that. And, God, I didn't know until, let's see, it would have been Thursday or Friday that Thursday, I guess. I think I found out Thursday of that week that I was actually calling that race. So, it was really cool. It was really cool. I'd like to do more of that.
And so I'm curious as to what has been your favorite moment that you've gotten to call in any form of racing, any track. One moment.
There's been some epic moments in Supercross for sure. Too many to think of just off the top of my head, but there's been some unbelievable battles over there. I mean, those guys are they really go at it. There was some really good World of Outlaw ones over the years. Daniel Lasowski's first win at the Knoxville Nationals as the hometown hero. There were numerous events with Kinzer, Steve behind the wheel. Like he crashed real hard the night before the King's Royal one year and then came back and won it the next night. Being a part of the pit crew for CBS, the Daytona 500, when Earnhardt finally won. That was really good. Getting to interview Earnhardt on CBS, the 500 the year before, when that was 97, was the year Gordon won his first race at Daytona. And that was the year that Dale did the flip down the backstretch and then got back in the car and finished. I had the big interview with him after, which was pretty monumental, pretty cool deal. And then he won the next year in 98, being on pit road for that. Doing the first live U.S. Nationals at Indianapolis on TNN was a big one. Doing the first live Knoxville Nationals was a big one. First live Supercross was a big one. Those have all been pretty cool.
It was a lot of fun too, especially since Supercross is something that you've been around with for so long. Just being able to watch some of the rivalries that were formed over the years, especially like when you had James Stewart and Chad Reed. I remember when I was in high school, that was the big rivalry back in like late 2000s, early 2010s. Those two would always go at it. But not only just them, you had the Ryan Dungey. Was that something that always intrigued you? Did a little bit of a fan ever come out of you whenever you saw that kind of stuff? Because I know a rivalry kind of is a nice little addition on top of everything. It makes the sport it's pretty entertaining from what already it is. But I know it can be really impactful when you see something like that because just the will and the hunger to win kind of makes, I feel like, a more anticipating like I guess sense for the finish whenever it gets there. So I don't know for you if like the rivalries that you've seen over the years have ever kind of impacted you in any form of way.
Sure. I mean, you always look forward to having those rivalries called, and for me, my heroes were when I was a kid. Mario, AJ, Don Perdome, Richard Petty, Dale Earnhardt Sr. Those are the guys that were my heroes. So once my broadcasting career really got going, they talked about more heroes. I didn't have fan favorite. I wasn't cheering for this guy over that guy. It was always, man, I just want to see a great race and everybody get out of this thing safely, and let's just get into those moments. So, yeah, I've been very fortunate on the Supercross side The Ricky Carmichael, Chad Reed, James Stewart rivalry was a massive one. Ryan Dungey, Ryan Villapota was a massive one. Eli that have really made calling Supercross a lot of fun, because those guys are just, man, they throw everything at it.
Yeah, no, the Supercross, like I wasn't, growing up, never was I never followed it, but I'd always, tune in on a Saturday night. If it was on, I'd tune in, because it's just, they put on a great show. Like you said, it's unlike any other form of racing. How hard these guys go is insane.
Well, the thing about it is, in Supercross, it's still 80% the rider that makes the difference as to whether or not you win or lose. It could be more than that. It could be 90. But it's all about heart and determination over there. They're all physically fit, unlike any other athlete in racing, maybe unlike any other athlete in the world. They all have a fast motorcycle. They all have good teams. It's just when the gate drops, it's up to that guy to make the absolute difference. And you're willing to go at it a little bit harder than the other guy, you can make the difference. And that's where you see guys like James and Chad and Ricky, rise to the occasion week after week after week.
So, I just want to know, what's that one thing that you haven't done yet? What's that one thing that just kind of is gnawing at you? And you mentioned Le Mans. I'm interested. Like, what's that one thing? It's like, if you had the option tomorrow to do it, you're gonna go and do it.
Yeah, it would be Le Mans. Not because necessarily I'm that big of a sports car fan. I am. I like sports car racing a lot. I don't like it any more or any less than anything else. But it's the one thing I haven't done, and it's the one place I haven't been that I really want to see. I've been to every, NASCAR race and IndyCar race and all that other stuff that I think is great. There's still some other tracks I haven't been to. Like, I've never been to Auto Club Speedway. It was never part of the TNN, or Fox schedules that I worked. It was always on another network when I was doing NASCAR. It wasn't on the CBS schedule. So, you go where your network sends you. So apparently I better go before they change it. But I think right now, if you said you could go to the one I haven't been to that I really want to experience would be Le Mans. After that, I called Monaco, but we did it live on CBS. But I was with Danny Sullivan, and we were in the CBS studios in New York. We did it from there. It's kind of like they're doing their cup races right now. So, so it just goes to show you that's nothing new. We've been doing remotes like that for years. So, I mean, there's some F1 events I probably would want to try, or I've done a bunch of MotoGP races, but they were all here in the U.S. Wouldn't mind going to see MotoGP at, say, like Jerez, or F1 at Spa, something like that, But first would be Le Mans, just to check that box and be good.
You bring up that remote.
But I don't want to do it when there's no fans either, right? I mean, I want to be able to do it when you can get full experience. If you were to do F1 at Monza like they did the Italian GP over the weekend, it's no fun if the Tifosi's not there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially with a race that went down this past weekend in F1. Like, imagine if you had a full pack of fans. I mean,
right, it'd be crazy. I want to see that.
And you bring up the remote, different location commentating. How much, like, does it impact you, difference wise, of only being able to watch it on monitors and call it, as opposed to being at the track and being able to just see for yourself?
I don't want to say it's no fun, because it's still fun to call a race, and you get so immersed in what's happening on the screen that, you feel like you're there because you're really involved in what's going on, but you're not there. You're not there. You're not, especially when the fans and everything are there, right? We got to remember it's a big difference doing it like the guys are doing right now, the NBC guys are doing right now. They're doing it because they have to. And if they were at the racetrack, it wouldn't make a difference anyway because the fans aren't there and they can't go in the garage area anyway, right? So what's the difference? But like when Danny and I did, this is a great story. Danny and I are doing Monaco. We're at the CBS studios in New York, and we're watching Friday practice or whatever it was, Saturday practice, and the cars are going around the track, and we got these gigantic monitors in there, and they're going by places, and Danny goes, "Oh, see that right there? That's the such and such a bar." And man, we would have had fun going there. And then, "Oh, see this over here? That's this restaurant over here." From when he raced in F1 back in the day, he goes, "I'm going to have to take you there sometime." I finally told him, I go, "Would you just stop?" And he goes, "Why? What do you mean?" I go, "Well, we can't go. We're here in New York. So I don't want to hear about it because I'm not going to get to do any of that, So if you can go and all that ambiance is there and you can smell the brats if you're doing a race in Wisconsin, or you can, hear the Tifosi cheering if you're in Italy, that makes a big difference in how you do the broadcast, the vibe that you try to put through the microphone and through the screen to the viewer at home to give them a real feel for what that event is like. There is no way, if there's 400,000 people in Indianapolis, that you can call that race from a remote location and tell me it's the same. Can't do it.
I lost my track of thought here. Sorry. No, it's a lot of fun. And just like you said, a whole bunch of fans at Indy. I couldn't imagine, like we saw when Fox came back, you had Mike Joy and Jeff Gordon there calling it from the Charlotte studios. Imagine them doing like the Daytona 500, and you have they're not there. It's not the same. It's not the same. You can't even compare.
It's not. I think you'll see more and more races be done that way just because some of the networks are learning it's cheaper. But I don't think the big ones will do that if they don't have to. I think, if NBC and Fox could have let their big talent go to those events, they certainly would have. But it wasn't feasible this year. We were very lucky we could go to Salt Lake City. Ricky and I were there for every race, but we couldn't go in the pits and talk to anybody. So would it have really made a difference? I don't know. I'm glad we went. I would rather have done it the way we did it than the way those guys are doing it right now. But, it's a different world right now.
Absolutely. And I think I was just watching a baseball game tonight. I think the more as we do it, I think the more that people get used to it now. Like I remember back when baseball first came back and when the teams were traveling on the road, but the announcers were staying at the home stadiums. So they're calling the games just like I was watching it on the TV. And that was very different. I think it was really different for them to call games that way because they're so used to seeing it live.
Yeah.
But I think now that we're almost at the end of this 60-game season for the MLB, they're getting more used to it. It sounds like they're right there. And I think for anybody, I think now the more we do it, the more we get used to it. Now it's just more fluent.
Yeah, but I would also bet that every single one of those announcers would tell you there's nothing like being at the ballpark and smelling the grass and, all that. It just puts you in the right frame of mind to call it, and especially, a Tuesday night game between the Brewers and the Tigers. Yeah, okay, whatever. It's one of, like you said, 60, but normally be one of 162, but you start getting into October and playoffs and that energy level raises and man, you got to be there for that. You got to be there for that.
Yeah, then that's what I guess it's better than nothing, but I think it'll
Yeah.
definitely allow everyone to really appreciate what we have when everything is normal. Like you said, that Tuesday night Tigers Brewers game, like that game next year, if everything is back, hopefully, it's going to be, more special. You're going to take advantage of it.
Well, and I think, again, some of those events, they might not do the traditional way anymore, because it is cheaper. So maybe that Tigers Brewers game, when it's two teams that are not, well, but baseball's a little different because everybody's in town, right? I mean, the Tiger announcers, if they're playing in, Detroit, they live there. They're not traveling. But maybe the Brewers announcers don't travel to that game. Maybe they just stay back in Milwaukee and call it from there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when it becomes a very important series like Yankees, Red Sox, Giants, Dodgers, or, man, I know we're focusing on baseball here, but I'm just using that as an example. When things become a little bit more important, it's whatever the sport is, if it's playoffs or a big event or a Alabama-Auburn type situation, CBS or whoever is doing the national coverage of that game will say, this is Alabama-Auburn, this is Florida-Georgia, this is, these are big events, this is the Daytona 500. We're sending our guys to do that there. Maybe we won't send them to Martinsville. We're sending them there.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective to think about that because everyone's bringing up, the new normal, the new normal. That could be the new normal when it comes to broadcasting is picking and choosing your locations to go full force to cover
Well,
something.
I think part of that new normal is you're going to see, they're figuring out that as a whole, they don't need all the people in the TV compound that they once had. Instead of, and I don't know the numbers, but there's less cameramen out there. There's less audio people at site right now and so forth and so on. Some of those people aren't going to get their jobs back because they're going to figure out, hey, we used 25 cameras before and we can do it with 20.
Mm-hmm. And that's really, big for people in this industry because these are jobs that are becoming less and less when some would think you'd be getting more and more. So it's more or less you're losing some positions in some fields and you're gaining some in others. But does that gain really outdo the loss is what we've yet to really see after, this pandemic ends. Then we'll get real accurate.
Well, I mean, I guess question for the fan is, do you really notice a difference in the lack of cameras right now? If you watch a Cup race, did you notice any cameras missing at Darlington over the weekend?
No.
So there you go.
Especially with their new drone cameras that they've been implementing over the last couple of years. Those are really taking off and they're trying
but at least you got to have a drone pilot for that, right?
Yep.
So there's a person there for that. So you lost one hard camera operator and you gained a drone pilot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the times we live in now, and that's unfortunately what we're going to have to live with here for X amount of time. Hopefully get back into some normal coverage. I know every broadcaster would love to get back to their events. They would love to just get back on the road. And before we wrap up, I want to ask you about the travel because you've been everywhere. Does the travel ever take a toll, or has it just been that much fun?
It is that much fun. The travel takes a toll every week. We always say, I think it was Wally Dallenbach who quoted this first when we were doing the TNT stuff, saying, we get paid for the travel, we do the broadcast for free. Because the broadcasts are fun. Live TV is a blast. Doesn't matter what you're calling it, it's a blast. But yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've, missed family things, birthdays, holidays, parties, functions, whatever it is. Had how many dinners I've had on the road by myself, day after day over the weekends. Canceled flights, extra nights in hotels, rainouts, all that kind of stuff. It wears you down. There is nothing fun about a packed airplane, a lousy hotel room, and a rental car that's, worn out. Nothing good about any of that. But in the grand scheme of things, if that's what I've got to go through to get to do those live broadcasts, I would do it time and time and time again. No problem. Happy to go. Can't wait to go again.
And that's the right mindset to have. It's definitely a mindset that needs to be pushed into the minds of people trying to get into the same field as you. And you got to make some sacrifices. That's just how this field works. And if you make those sacrifices, you've got to weigh it out. Is it worth it? And if you really work to where you want to become, then I think those sacrifices have to be made to, they don't outdo what the reward is at the end.
Well, and those are all personal decisions. I mean, I have friends all the time that say, I could never, deal with the schedule you deal with. And I look at them and I go, yeah, but you travel a month at a time for your job, or you're constantly on the road for your job. It's just something different. It's, what are you passionate about? Doesn't matter if you're passionate about it, whatever that job is, whether it's being a doctor, a lawyer, a garbage man, it doesn't matter, man. If you're passionate about it, then that's what does it for you. That's awesome, and if doing being an architect or lawn maintenance guys, if you're passionate about it, it's not a job. Because your creativity comes through on it, and your desire to be the best at what you do gets you through all the stuff that would wear anybody else out if it comes to that job. I'm not passionate about being, about architecture. So it would be an absolute grind for me to have to get up every day and try to figure out what I'm going to do that day as an architect. There's somebody else out there right now, maybe even watching this show, that can't not get excited about designing a building or a house, right? And that's what they should do. I can't, they should. And it doesn't make any of us any better than anybody else. You're just fortunate if you find what it is you're passionate about. I've been very lucky that I found one for me, and I've been able to make a career out of it.
And that is it's really awesome to hear that from you, someone that's done all the rounds and still going. And I think that's such a great way to end the show, is to leave it on that note. Everyone's got something to leave here with, and hopefully, one day we accomplish everything like I feel like you have. Or that
well,
we want.
Thanks. And you guys will. I mean, if you got that passion, it'll keep you driving to get to wherever you want to be. And that might change. I mean, you guys are doing the on-air part now, but you might find that you decide to be a producer or a director or a cameraman is something you get excited about if you get an opportunity to try those positions. And you should, because if you are, even if you're going to be on-air talent, it's good to know what everybody else has to do, what their responsibilities are, so that you understand when the show is on what you can do to help make their job easier or better, so you guys can work together as a team.
Definitely. And just got to thank you for coming on. It's definitely very special to have you on for episode 20. It was a blast this whole time.
Well, thanks for having me. I enjoyed chatting with you guys, and best of luck with your careers.
Yeah, thank you, Ralph. This was a great treat, and this is something that I think we're all going to remember for a very long time. So thank you very much for this.
Well, that's cool, man. I hope we get to do it again.
Absolutely. You're always welcome back on here.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, guys. Yeah, don't forget Speed Sport. Check it out, speedsport.com.
Of course. I'll definitely be looking into that on my Roku later tonight.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you so much, Ralph.
We'll return after these messages.
right. Well, that was really cool having Ralph Sheheen on the show for episode 20. I don't know about you guys, but that was a blast.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Really, just cool to see what goes on behind the scenes. You know, we won't know that Ralph Sheheen called ladies fashion, just seeing him call a supercross race. You'd never know that. So it's really cool once you get some of these guys like out of the booth, out of the driver's seat, to see what goes on behind the scenes and how the different things that they've done led up to where they are today.
And that's, I feel like, one thing people don't really talk about a whole lot these days when they do interviews and stuff like what we just did. It's nice to be able to see what he does, like you just mentioned, behind the scenes, instead of kind of the stereotypical questions that always kind of get asked as like kind of, I don't know, what goes on in somebody's life, especially in the position that he was in. But for I know for us, he's a guy that we always looked up to. I was a pretty much 90s kid, 2000s kid. You two, a lot of your experience with NASCAR came in the 2000s, like right when Ralph was kind of around in the scene, and also with Supercross and all the different things that he was able to be a part of. So I know for us, especially, he's the guy we always looked up to. And now that all these years later we get to talk to him, it was definitely a good experience for us. Really
cool. Like it's just feels like just talk to the biggest celebrity that there was. I don't know if you guys could tell that I was a little nervous, a little starstruck. It's like, man, we're talking to like the Ralph Sheheen. So that was really cool. But the more that we do this, the more guests we get, I think it's just gonna become more natural. And hopefully now that we've gotten Ralph on, hopefully other guests will come on and we'll have more than just us three.
100%. And also too, hope that everybody watching was able to enjoy that. Feel free, if you leave a comment or something for Ralph, if we ever have him back on the show, I know we'd love to hear from you. So feel free to leave a comment for a question in the future that you have, or just your thoughts about Ralph just being on the show, because it was fun for us and hopefully it was fun for you.
Yeah, I definitely learned a lot from him. I hope you guys did too. Definitely something as I, finish my college career, I'm going to need to find something to do outside. I want to mainly be in NASCAR, but as Ralph said, you got to broaden your horizons. And the fact that he said it would be easier to list the motorsports he hasn't covered than the ones that he has is just amazing. That is just an amazing accomplishment. I like to pride myself on I could talk about any sport, but motorsports is just an endless, scene. And to be able to, be knowledgeable and commentate and report about it is just insane what Ralph has done. And he's very experienced, and it was just, it's fantastic to have him on the show. Definitely an episode I will never forget. Lessons I will take with me throughout my career. And it's just things that I love about doing this podcast is getting to meet new people, getting to share my opinions and talk about, today's stuff and stuff that's happened in the past. It's been a blast.
Absolutely. Should have handed him, sent him over your resume, and we'll pass it off to the Fox Sports people. Could be talking to Dom from the Charlotte studios next year.
Yeah, that'd be quite the scene, but take it one step at a time. And, right now my focus is all on the Ford Fuel podcast. I love what we're doing, and we're not stopping or slowing down anytime soon. So I like where we're at. And, race that a lot of people might not have liked, the Cookout Southern 500. Now, Cookout, everyone should love Cookout. I mean, I had Cookout for the first time back in July after the All-Star race. Wes and I, we both drove, only drive-through only, but, it looked like if you're at McDonald's, that drive-through line may have taken about an hour. We got our food. It was about 15 cars ahead of us. We got our food in about a half hour. So you can't fault them. And the food may have been the greatest fast food I've ever had in my life. It was life-changing.
That is one thing we did not ask Ralph that we'll have to ask him on the next podcast. His thoughts about his thoughts about Cookout. But I guess switching over to the race itself, that's one thing that we'll dive into just a little bit and give our picks for next week. We'll chat about Darlington some, but yeah, the race was it was interesting. There were some highs and some lows, and maybe not the most exciting Darlington race that we've ever seen compared to like 2016, which might have been the best Darlington race of the decade. But for the most part, it was there were different parts that were entertaining and others that maybe not so much.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the not so good side of things. We'll start with that. Let's just work our way from the bottom of the playoff grid. Ryan Blaney. I mean, we knew Ryan Blaney coming into this round could have been a wild card round for him because two of his worst tracks, Darlington and Richmond, and now Ryan Blaney, the trouble started before the race even started. He started 10 points in the hole, lost his crew chief, and now he enters the race 13th in the points, already below the cut line when he had those playoff points to back up on, and they lost those all before the race even started. And now Ryan Blaney sits 17 points out after a really just a bad race. You don't usually see Ryan Blaney struggle to run inside the top 20, and a 19th place finish seems like better than he ran all day.
Yeah, these last four races have been not the Blaney that we've seen the entire rest of the year, because every other year we've seen him in the top 5 for the entire first half of the race, and then either bad luck or a driving mistake or something has kind of impacted his performance. But with Darlington, nothing went right. The penalty beforehand with the team's critical error, losing his crew chief didn't help, and is not going to help. I don't know if he has crew chief for this upcoming weekend, but had a flat tire during the race. It seemed like his pit crew continuously made mistakes that we kind of talked about before the podcast. And then this being his worst racetrack, Richmond next week is other worst racetrack. I don't know if I said it in the last podcast, but I know we talked about it briefly. I was worried about Blaney because these aren't as good tracks, and I'm a Blaney fan. I think that Bristol will be his best opportunity, but we'll have to see how he does at Richmond.
It just depends if Ty Dillon decides to clean him out or not.
Yeah, let's hope he doesn't wreck on the backstretch again in a similar way, and Ty's crossing the start-finish line.
So, yeah, he will have Todd Gordon next week. That is confirmed. But two guys that will not have their crew chief next week at Richmond, Clint Boyer and Kyle Busch. It's already been announced Clint Boyer is going to have Greg Zipadelli on top of the box, and that's definitely no slouch to have on top of the box. Quite the backup to come in. It's almost like the Philadelphia Eagles for a few years. Carson Wentz goes down, but you've got Nick Foles to come in. That's kind of what you got here. And then Kyle Busch, they're going to bring up Jacob Cantor. He's been the crew chief of the 54 in the Xfinity Series. So actually, they're going to get to work together on Friday night in the Xfinity race. So to kind of build up that, chemistry, build up that notebook for Saturday night. So definitely a benefit for Kyle running the Xfinity race Friday night, especially to develop some more chemistry with Jacob Cantor. And speaking of Kyle Busch had a very up and down night. He had flashes where he had top 3 speed, and there were flashes where he was just kind of meh and back in 8th or 10th. So, Steve, do you think the playoffs really did anything for Kyle Busch, or do you think we're still seeing that same Kyle Busch we've seen all of 2020?
I don't know. It's hard to judge how Kyle Busch is going to do after one playoff race. This is most certainly not the Kyle Busch that we're used to seeing, and I think this is just kind of the broken record we've been saying all year long. It's just not the same Kyle Busch. And it's not going to be the same without Adam Stevens. There's going to be a little bit of a struggle on Saturday night. But I think definitely working with Jacob Cantor on Friday night, they're going to work out some of those kinks that they're going to go through like you normally would for the Cup race. So I think working out some of those kinks during the Xfinity race, knowing kind of the lingo that the driver and the crew chief develop, kind of learning that is definitely going to help Kyle on Saturday night going to one of his best racetracks at Richmond. So I look for Kyle to still have a good run. I can't say that he's going to go out and dominate the race because we haven't been seeing that out of Kyle Busch all year long, but I don't think he's going to struggle by any means. So I look for Kyle Busch to still be up front, contending for the win at Richmond.
Yeah, Kyle Busch, and he's got no mulligan. He's only 7 points ahead of that cut line. So, a freak accident, a mechanical failure, that could knock Kyle Busch out after one round in these playoffs. And honestly, you could say that for almost everybody behind Denny Hamlin.
Yeah, we were saying that about Truex. Truex is only 16 points up.
Mm-hmm.
We're not used to seeing Truex be in trouble of the cut line, except for those first couple of years he was in the 78. But, as of the last couple of years, we're not used to seeing Truex. He's been kind of an easy ride-in for the championship round. So guys like Truex and like Kyle Busch and even Ryan Blaney being this far below the cut line, we're not used to seeing that. So this is a completely – every year the playoffs have this kind of new twist to it.
So, yeah, if there's one guy that isn't worried about points or the playoff situation right now, it's Kevin Harvick. Another win for that 4-team. I got the pick last week, so I got to pick Harvick. Finally back on the board. I think I'm tied with Steve again. It's like me and Steve are like Hamlin and Harvick. We just keep winning. We keep winning, and Wes is down in the cellar. Wes got that early win in the season, and now you just can't pick it. You just can't pick a winner anymore.
Well, to be fair, I've missed like 10 of the episodes.
All right, well, I mean, Kyle Busch didn't make that excuse in 2015. He went on to win a championship.
Yeah, so we'll just wait and see. We got a few more weeks left to try to pull something out of the bag.
Yeah, but yeah, Harvick now has 62 playoff points going in the next round, and we still have 2 more races this round. So Kevin Harvick almost has 2 full races to just kind of have a mulligan. He could run mediocre or throughout the whole round and make it. Now
he's going to get to 100 playoff points, I bet. By Phoenix, he's going to have 100 playoff points.
It's a shame those 100 playoff points will not matter at Phoenix.
Yeah.
Now,
that's going to be the one race that he's going to have that mulligan. Just lap 1, going to have that, little rear end seal that's just going to blow apart. Garage championship done.
Yeah, outside of the Carl Edwards wreck, we really haven't seen a championship contender not, make it to the end of the race, on the lead lap. So we still haven't seen that happen where maybe some freak accident happens, early in the race where it takes a championship contender out. Hopefully we don't see that, because then that just makes it very, anticlimactic for a championship battle. But, I'm looking at this race, and if there's some people who surprise people, obviously Austin Dillon getting second there and almost getting the win from Kevin Harvick definitely has to get some people thinking Austin Dillon might be a legit threat to, make it to the next round and maybe even, the round of 8, because round of 12 is wild. Anything can happen in that round with the tracks you've got. So I think Austin Dillon honestly should not be written out for a round of 8 spot.
I agree. I hinted at last week just the fact that when he's in this playoff mentality, 2 of the 3 years that he's made it, he's gone to the round of 12. And I know this year, a lot of people counted him out, but he has shown pretty good speed this year, and so has Richard Childress overall, because their department hasn't really been able to, show a lot of success recently. But we did see with Dillon, and I kind of mentioned last week, just when he's in this mentality, I feel like he performs better especially with the equipment that he has. And I had a feeling, I was like, that there could be a chance that he could get through at least through this round, because these tracks aren't his worst, and they are other people's weakness. And I feel like there's been a lot of, not really steadiness to any driver's performance this year. There's been a lot of highs and lows for everybody. It's been a lot more, besides like the Harvicks and the Hamlins and some of the guys at the top, there's been a lot more inconsistency with finishes this year than we've seen in other years. But for Austin Dillon, these tracks definitely play in his favor for this first round. So definitely, like what you were saying, Don, I would definitely look at Austin Dillon to be a guy to watch out for, because he's not too bad at Richmond. And Bristol, he was able to perform pretty well here. he has a couple top fives, a few more top tens. Definitely look out for him.
Yeah, and then we'll look ahead to Richmond, as you said. Not a bad track for Austin Dillon. We'll get into Richmond Saturday night racing. Gotta love that. I think we've got 2 weeks in a row of Saturday night racing. We've got Richmond night and the Bristol night race. So a couple Saturday night short track fun fests. And this week, Wes, you get to lead off the picks. Is Austin Dillon your pick this week? Is he going to the round of 12 on a win?
No, I think we'll get a few stage points, maybe not a win, but I guess I went with Hamlin last week. Definitely not going to go Hamlin this week. He kind of let me down. Didn't run too bad, but made a couple mistakes and then ended up getting plowed by Jimmy Johnson. Even though Hamlin messed up there, Johnson just didn't really hit the brakes when they needed to. But, no, I'm just giving everybody a hard time. My pick this week, I'm just going to take the obvious one just because I need a win. I've missed so many episodes. I'm going to pick Truex. He's going in this week. He already had such a bad week last week where he had the win pretty much in the bag, but didn't have Chase cleared like he thought he did. And it cost him the opportunity to win. And he's been such a dangerous threat pretty much every week for the past 10 weeks that he's definitely due for a win. He's a guy that only has one win this season. He's a dominant force at Richmond, even though he's only won twice in the past few years. I think twice in his career. So I'm going to pick Truex.
All right. I think Steve was kind of upset that he picked that last pick Truex.
Steve was not happy on that one.
I know. I was holding off on Truex. And I didn't pick him last week, so I was like, I'm going to pick him at Richmond. Nope, can't do that. So I think, let's see. So I'll hold off on my Richmond pick for a second. I think because I haven't had very good luck the last couple of weeks, I think for Bristol, I'm going to reach out to Twitter. I'm going to get a whole fan poll together, and as a collective unit, I think my pick for Bristol next week is going to be a whole bunch of people on Twitter. So we'll have to watch for that for Bristol of who Twitter world picks for Bristol. As far as Richmond goes, man, let's see. I picked Kyle Busch last week. That was a mistake. Let's see. You know what? I'll just go. I'm going to go Clint Boyer, actually. You know, with Greg Zipadelli pulling the Nick Foles backup situation, he's got 2 wins at Richmond. Not Bristol. Richmond's been a pretty good track for Clint Boyer historically. And with Greg Zipadelli, a championship winning crew chief, you can't go wrong with that. So I'm going to go with Clint Boyer. He's going to move on to the round of 12 and prove me wrong.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's what I like to hear.
I mean, yeah, you bring up Clint Boyer. Clint Boyer's been involved in multiple incidents at Richmond. Some good, some bad.
Oh, Mikey.
But yeah, you gotta look.
Mitch. You should itch it.
Oh man, you look back in 2008. So you had Dale Jr. and Kyle Busch get together, and that puts Clint Boyer ahead to win the race. Driver that finished second that night was Kyle Busch. There was a stretch of 4 consecutive spring races where Kyle Busch did not lose at Richmond. Last year, Kyle Busch finished second to his teammate Martin Truex Jr. There's one track Kyle Busch is going to win at. It's Richmond. Give me a wild thing. Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch is going to come out on Saturday night like a new man. We are going to see a performance unlike no other from Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch going to lead at least 300 laps. Going to sweep the stages, win the race, and he's going to solidify himself as that number 4 guy saying, we're going to repeat the championship 4 last year. It's going to be me, 2 of my teammates, and Harvick battling it out in Phoenix this year, not Homestead, a track Kyle Busch is also really good at. So I think Kyle Busch turns the tide this weekend with crew chief Jacob Cantor. And he starts his historic run this week at Richmond.
I'm curious now if Kyle Busch wins this weekend, and we're going to have to ask our buddy Dalton Good. If Kyle Busch wins this weekend with Jacob Cantor, do they go back to Adam Stevens the following week, or do they keep it going with Jacob Cantor? I'm curious.
Hey, Jacob Cantor gave Denny Hamlin a good car at Darlington. He's given Kyle Busch some good cars this season in the Xfinity Series. I think Kyle Busch doubles down and win the Xfinity race. And that'll just mean that our buddy Dalton is going to have to chug some M&M minis.
That's right. We haven't forgotten about that.
So holding him on that. Can't wait to see that video on Sunday after Kyle Busch wins. Now, in no way, shape, or form am I rooting for Kyle Busch. I'm not saying I want Kyle Busch to win, but that's just the analytics say Kyle Busch is going to win.
By rule, as Larry Mack would say.
The calculator's got smoke coming out of it, so I've been doing a lot of work, and I hope you guys had a lot of fun with this episode. Definitely a lot of work involved with this episode, but, you know, it's not really work when you're having fun, and right. I know we're all having fun, so again, thanks to Ralph Sheheen coming on the podcast. Thank you guys for sticking around. Hopefully you guys enjoy the racing this weekend, some short track racing under the lights, hopefully. And we'll be back next week for episode 21, where I just happen to turn 21 next week. So just can't time it better than that.
Like you did it on purpose.
Yeah, I wish I could say I did that on purpose, but this is just some strange luck. So hopefully we have something to celebrate next week. All right. Everyone enjoy the race this weekend and have a good one.